The SAT is right around the corner, and you've done everything right. You studied, you practiced, you've watched all the YouTube videos about the SAT. But when you take a blue book practice test, you still feel that doubt. Like something feels off. Getting a high SAT score isn't just about knowing math or grammar. It's about outsmarting the test itself. So in this video, I will show you the real SAT strategies that separate 100 plus scorers from everyone else. Let's get into it. I just analyzed something every SAT student needs to see: prediction questions. And they're trickier than ever this year. But here's what no one is telling you: the College Board keeps using the same patterns. So I broke down real questions from past papers, mapped out the exact types they're likely to repeat, and built a step-by-step approach for your exam. And in this video, I'm giving you the full breakdown so you don't waste time guessing and actually start getting these right. Alright, I just spotted a pattern in SAT prediction questions, and if you're prepping for your exam, this could be the edge that you need. Here's the one that looks basic, but almost everyone overthinks it. What's the main purpose of the text? Seems simple, right? But here's what the SAT does. They lead you with a familiar idea, then twist it just enough to trap you. Check this out. First, you get a stat from Finland's digital education skyrocketing. Then, they explain it using a fancy-sounding model. Schools use more tech because they got better Wi-Fi. But here's the twist and the real reason this question shows up. A new study disproves that model. It says tech adoption is messy, driven by teacher training, student engagement, way more than just internet access. So what's the move here? You don't get distracted by the country names. You ask, why does this paragraph exist? And the answer is always to challenge a common explanation. This pattern, set up a popular belief, then dismantle it with new evidence, has shown up again and again in SAT questions. Alright, here's a transition question. That's exactly the type the SAT loves to sneak in, and if you spot the pattern, it becomes that simple. Let's break it down. Dr. Elena has studied coral reef ecosystems in the Caribbean for over 2 decades. She developed a revolutionary method for coral transplantation that increased survival rates by 40%. Now, pause for a second. You know what's wild? Most students don't get a low SAT math score because they're dumb, but because they have no clue what they're bad at. They solve hundreds of random, easy questions and maybe even feel productive. And that's exactly why their SAT scores stay stuck. And that's where these 13 full-length realistic SAT math practice tests come in. And those who use them improve their SAT math scores from 680 to 740, from 660 to 780, from 700 to 760. And they all use these exact 13 tests. Every test feels exactly like the real SAT, but the real power? The weakness analysis system. After every test, it breaks down your performance, not just by topic, but by skill. So go to the description of this video, click the first link to get access to the 13 SAT math practice tests and start your weakness analysis system. And if just one of these tests helps you find 2 weak spots, that's already 20 to 40 extra points right there. Even if you're already good at math, these practice tests help you a lot, because at that level, it's not about learning new formulas, but it's about finding those tiny mistakes that keep you stuck below 780. And these tests show you the small gaps that normal prep books or YouTube videos never catch. The exact things that separate a 700 from an 800. And here's the best part. The first test is completely free. Sign up, take the test, and get your personalized weakness analysis report for free. So click the first link in the description, start your free test, and begin boosting your SAT math score today. Most students rush straight to their choices, but here's how top scorers think. They read both lines and ask one question.
What's the relationship between these two ideas? And here it's obvious. First line is for background. The second line is what she achieved because of that background. So the second sentence isn't contrasting. It's not summarizing. It's not even wrapping anything up. It's zooming in and it's saying here's the specific thing this expert did. Now look at the choices. Specifically, perfect. It sharpens the focus. Conversely, makes no sense. You're not flipping the idea. Finally, there wasn't a list. So this isn't the end of anything. Nevertheless, again, we're not showing contrast. We're building. So the correct answer is A, specifically. And here's the kicker. The SAT loves this pattern. Broad statement, then zoomed in example. And now you know exactly how to answer this. Alright, this SAT question looks innocent, but it hides one of the College Board's favorite tricks. It's a main idea question, and the way they frame these, you miss one word, and the whole answer feels right until it isn't. Let's look at the passage. We're talking Tar, Hungarian filmmaker, long shots, barely any stories, super slow pacing. It sounds boring because here's where it flips. Most people bail because they want fast, punchy, Marvel-style storytelling, but Tar's films and contemplative cinema in general are designed to frustrate, and then viewers stop chasing instant gratification. They start feeling more, seeing more, connecting way deeper. That's the SAT's trap here. They want to see if you will pick an answer that just says it's slow and frustrating, or the one that actually gets what the passage is doing. So let's check all the options here. A talks about struggle, but no mention of the deeper connection, but no mention of the deeper reward, so cut it. C makes stuff up, like Ter is better than other directors, not in the text. D sounds deep but misses the point. It's not about his intent, it's about the audience's experience. Only B gets it right. It shows both sides, the frustration and the potential for powerful engagement. And here's the part the SAT keeps repeating. They set up a seeming flaw, then flip it into a strength, especially on arts or literature passages. Slow films aren't boring. Long points aren't confusing. They're deliberate. And if you see that setup again, you already know what they're doing here. So next time the SAT hands you a passage that feels frustrating or offbeat, lean in. The real answer is probably hidden after the twist.
We have an equilateral triangle, equal sides, equal angles, with a perimeter of 876 centimeters. But here's where it gets insane. The triangle is inscribed in a circle. That means all three vertices touch the circle perfectly. And they want us to find W when the radius equals W multiplied by the square root of 3 centimeters. Most students would panic right now, but not you. So firstly, we should find the side lengths. So this is an equilateral triangle, which means all three sides are identical. So perimeter equals 876 centimeters, and side length would be 876 divided by 3, which equals 292 centimeters. Now we have to find the connection between the side length and radius. So when an equilateral triangle is inscribed in a circle, there is a magical relationship. Radius equals side length divided by the square root of 3. This is the formula that can change this SAT question. So the formula that can take you from being a struggling student to crushing these types of problems. So here we have R equals 292 divided by the square root of 3. So now we know that R equals W multiplied by the square root of 3. So 292 divided by the square root of 3, and this will equal to W in the square root of 3. So 292 equals W multiplied by 3. So W equals 292 divided by 3. The sentence that we care about here says any graduate from the boot camps who arrive in San Francisco with a prototype in their laptop could take no shorter road to seeing it develop than that
which led to the office of Dr. Markova. So let's pull out some keywords here. No sure road, which is the underlined portion here. And this means that going to Dr. Markova was the best option. If you want to develop your idea, seeing it developed. This tells us what she does. She helps programmers bring their ideas to life. So here, our conclusion or summary of the sentence is that if you wanted your app to succeed, going to Dr. Markova was the best move. Now let's understand the role of this sentence, because when we have a phrase that is underlined, it's more about the sentence than just about this word. Now let's think, why does this author include this? What does it tell us about Dr. Markova? So the passage says she welcomes everyone, even if their ideas are not amazing. She's brutally honest and doesn't sugarcoat her feedback. But despite her bluntness, people still go to her because she's important. So our summary here that Dr. Markova is a big deal. If you're a new developer, getting help from her is a game changer. So now let's try to eliminate some wrong answer choices. So here we have a choice A. It conveys Dr. Markova's lack of interest in continuing to support new programmers. Well, no, the passage literally says she welcomes everyone. She might be blunt, but she's still supporting them. Choice B, it explains Dr. Markova's view of the quality of technological innovations of the time. There is no mention of what she thinks about technology in general, just that she helps people whether their ideas are good or bad. Choice C creates a contrast between the inexperience of a young developer and the wisdom of Dr. Markova. This might sound good, but that's not what this sentence does. It's saying she's the best path to succeed. It's not comparing her experience to theirs. Choice D, it emphasizes the degree to which Dr. Markova's support is consequential for inexperienced developers. Boom, this matches our summary perfectly, and the passage tells us going to her is the best way to get an idea developed, which shows how important her help is for new programmers. So the final best answer to it is choice D. By breaking it down this way, even if you didn't really understand the passage wholly, you can follow the logic and see why D is the best choice. Imagine if every hard SAT question suddenly felt easy, not because the test got easier, but because you know exactly how to break it down. Most students think the SAT is tricky. The test makers try to confuse us. Yes, but once you learn how they create those hard questions, they become predictable. And right now, SAT questions feel like a magic trick. They seem impossible to solve, but what if someone showed you exactly how the tricks work? Suddenly, it's not magic anymore, it's just a pattern. That's exactly what I do in these types of videos, and if you're interested, you can click the join button below. Well, anytime we have a scaling question like this, we should start by understanding how the scaling affects the map and the distances represented on it. So they tell us that the original map has a width of 60 inches and that 1 inch represents 20 miles in real life. That means the entire width of the map represents 60 multiplied by 20, which is 1,200 miles, which is the actual width of the area covered by the map now. They shrink the map by 80%, meaning that the new map keeps the same proportions but is only 20% of the original width. So 60 multiplied by 0.2 equals 12 inches. So the new map here has a width of 12 inches, but still represents the same real-world area of 1,200 miles. So the question is asking us, on the smaller map, what's the actual distance represented by 1 inch? Well, if the entire width of the smaller map is 12 inches and represents 1,200 miles, you can just divide 1,200 by 12, and that equals to 100 miles per inch. So this is just a basic proportion problem where we're shrinking the map, but the real world area stays the same, meaning that each inch now covers more real distance. And notice how the SAT likes to set up trap answers here. For example, choice A, 5 miles per inch, and choice B, 10 miles per inch. And those choices might seem tempting if you misunderstood the problem and assumed everything was shrinking uniformly. But actually, when a map gets smaller, each inch covers more distance, not less, which is why the correct answer has to be a much larger number. And just a quick SAT strategy tip. Whenever they give you a shrinking or enlarging problem, always check if the total world area stays the same, because that's often the key to solving it quickly. So if you saw that the total distance didn't change, then you could have guessed that the new scale had to be larger than 20 miles per inch, eliminating the smaller answer choices immediately. Alright, so let's read the passage. Among the many overlooked artists of her era was Clara Ellison, whose painting exuded an air of quiet brilliance, though few could determine whether this was due to genuine mastery or mere mystique. Her canvases, often obscured by layers of symbolism, seemed to hint at an artistic genius that critics could neither confirm nor deny. Her long-lost letters, discovered decades later, might provide some insight into her creative process, but given that they were largely composed of ambiguous metaphors and unfinished thoughts, they might as well have remained undiscovered. Okay, so what stand out here? So few could determine whether her talent was real or not. Critics couldn't decide. The letters didn't really help, they just added to the mystery. And that's the basic sense of it. So let's check out the choices here. Choice A, she has the reputation of a remarkable artist, but it's unclear whether she truly possesses extraordinary talent. Well, okay, so remarkable artist. Yeah, the passage says her paintings had quite brilliance, but unclear whether she truly possesses extraordinary talent. Yep, this matches perfectly with critics could neither confirm nor deny her genius. And I like this choice. It really feels like neutral and it's very hard to prove it wrong. So let's check out the others as well. So choice B, she intentionally avoided public recognition despite making significant contributions to the art world. Intentionally avoided public recognition? Did she do that? No, nothing in the passage says she was avoiding fame. And it's not like she was hiding in a cabin somewhere. It's just that critics didn't know if she was actually good. So I don't really like this one. Choice C, she appeared to be a visionary painter, but her writing suggested some of her work was fraudulent. Fraudulent? It's a super strong word. Did the passage ever say her work was fake? Nope, it just says the meaning was unclear, not that she was lying. And it's a very strong word and there is no proof in the passage. Choice D, she would have been widely recognized if her artistic influences had not been difficult to interpret. Would have been widely recognized? Does the passage say that? No, it just says people couldn't figure out if she was truly great. If her artistic influences had not been so difficult to interpret. The passage talks about symbolism and mystery, but it doesn't say that the reason she wasn't famous. And in this story, there is too much assumption, so that's why that's not a correct answer choice. Now that we know, the final correct answer choice is choice A. The clothing store buys shirts at a wholesale price of $5 each and resells them each at a retail price that is 320% of the wholesale price. At the end of the season, any remaining shirts are marked at a discounted price that is 75% off the retail price. What is the discounted price of each remaining shirt in dollars? So this is such a great question because it has some serious traps, and I would know that going in, first, we're dealing with the percentages, which are notoriously tricky on the SAT. And second, it's a multi-step problem, meaning there is a huge opportunity for you to make a mistake. So if you don't stay careful, you might make a mistake here. So let's break it down step by step. So here we are given that a clothing store buys shirts for $5 each. Then it resells them at 320% of the wholesale price. That off is really important because it tells us that we're not just taking a normal percentage of a number. That means we use this formula. New price equals original multiplied by a percentage as a decimal. The original here is $5 and 320% as a decimal is 3.20 because we move the decimal 2 places on to the left. So 5 multiplied by 3.2 would equal to $60. So the retail price of the shirt is $16. But you're not done yet. There is a second step that you should take. Any remaining shirts are marked at a 75% discount. Now the phrase 17% off is very different from saying 70% off. This is where a lot of students get trapped because off means we subtract that percentage from 100. So instead of multiplying by 0.75, we multiply by 1 minus 0.75, which is 0.25, because 75% off means you're only paying 25% of the original price. So $16 multiplied by 0.25, and that's equals to 4. So that's our final answer, $4 per shirt. And if you wanted to do this all in one step, you could have done 5 multiplied by 3.2 multiplied by 0.25, and you would get 4. But since these percentages can be tricky, I highly recommend you to break it down because this video is your golden ticket. The 10 hardest SAT prediction questions, the ones that rack so many students every single year. And I spent the last 3 months analyzing the last 3 years SAT data, tracking every single SAT trend, decoding College Board updates. And the best part is that I've put together a free worksheet with every single strategy that you need. In 1954, something happens that changed the world forever. A man named Dr. Jonas Salk developed the first polio vaccine, a single discovery, a single breakthrough. Millions of lives were saved. But here's the real question. How do we measure the impact of this man's work? Medical researchers argue that Salk's contribution to eradicating polio is the vaccine's mass immunization campaigns and the dramatic collapse of polio cases worldwide. So let's break this down step by step. So the answer is right in front of you. So step number 1 is thinking before you look. So first pause, take a deep breath. What's the passage really saying? So Jonas Salk made a vaccine. That vaccine didn't just help. It wiped polio off the map in most of the world. And his contribution is obviously connected to this massive success. Now, before even looking at the answer choices, now I want you to ask yourself, well, is Salk's contribution irrelevant, criticized, or hidden? Think about this. No, it's not clear as day. So, step number 2 is eliminating the nonsense answer choices. Look at the options. Some of them are ridiculous. And let's have a look at choice A, irrelevant to. Are you joking? The vaccine saved millions of lives. Of course, his contribution is relevant. So let's eliminate choice A. Choice B, criticized by. Criticized? Who is even criticizing a man who literally helped eradicate a disease? So this choice is wrong. Choice D, obscured by. Obscured? No, his work isn't hidden. It's in the history books, right? So we can eliminate choice D as well. Now, if you have a look at choice B, evident in, bingo. Salk's contribution is clearly seen in the success of the vaccine. The streets of Manhattan are a war zone. Not for humans, and no. For pigeons, for rats, for every creature that is desperately fighting for the survival in a city that never sleeps. You think New York is just buildings and people? That's completely wrong. It's an ecosystem, a battlefield. Every single square inch of the space is contested. The competition is so brutal. And in the middle of this chaotic struggle, we have one crucial word, which is claim. What does it even mean? It's not some legal document or it's not some peaceful negotiation. No one is politely stepping aside and saying, "Oh, excuse me, Mr. Rat, this spot is yours." No. It's the fight, it's survival, it's about who gets to stay and who gets pushed out. So, which answer choice captures this sort of ruthless energy? Let's kind of break them down. So, starting with choice A, declare. Declare ownership of. It sounds really fancy, right? Like a king sitting on a throne saying, "I declare this land mine." But we're not talking about royalty. We're talking about rats and pigeons battling for scraps. So this choice is wrong. Choice B, demands compensation for. What? Who's getting paid? Like, a rat isn't walking into a court saying, "I demand financial compensation." No, it's not saying that. So we can literally eliminate this choice as well. Now let's have a look at choice C, reserve exclusively for. This choice looks like they are booking an Airbnb reserved from this ledge from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. No, this is not a reservation system, so this choice is wrong. Now let's have a look at choice D, compete to obtain. Yes, yes, yes. This is the war. This is competition. This is the very essence of what's happening on these streets. Every bird, every rodent is fighting for its place, for its food, for its survival. And this is the correct answer choice. So the final answer is choice D, compete to obtain. If you don't get this prediction question right, you'll stay stuck and you will keep getting the same mediocre scores, the same frustrating results, the same feeling of, why am I not improving? So let me show you how to solve this SAT prediction question. So step number 1 is looking at the question again slowly. So we are not just finding an answer. What we are doing is that we are finding the answer. So let's read it again. Feel it. What's this actually asking? So it's not asking for a fact, and it's asking for a function of what the underlined sentence is, and it's asking what the underlined sentence is doing in the passage. So the second step is reading the passage, but this time with awareness. So when studying the behavior of wild wolves in Yellowstone National Park, researchers observed a striking change in pack dynamics after the reintroduction of wolves to the area. Shifting from their solitary hunting practices to highly organized cooperative hunting strategies, the wolves began to take down larger prey with greater efficiency. This behavior, influenced by environmental pressures, allowed the wolves to survive in an ecosystem that previously struggled with a lack of predators. Do you see it? The first sentence sets up the big change. The underlying sentence zooms in on that event. And the last sentence explains why it matters. And that middle sentence is elaborating. It's giving the details that make the change real. So the next step is predicting before looking at the answer choices. And I will tell you this right now. Smart test takers predict first. And if you just jump to the answer choices, you get trapped. So your brain latches onto whatever sounds real good in answer choices. But if you already know what you're looking for, then you can smell the right answer. What is our prediction then? So the underlined sentence is adding detail to the previous one. It's giving a clear picture of the change in hunting strategies. So the next step is destroying the wrong answer choices. So let's go one by one. Choice A, it elaborates on the previous sentence statements about a change in the wolf's hunting strategies. Oh, this matches our prediction exactly. Choice B, it provides information about how the ecosystem evolved in support of a claim about wolf behavior advanced in the following sentence. Nope, this isn't about the ecosystem evolving. That's just background info in the last sentence. Choice C, it recounts a moment in the wolf's adaptation process that ensured the survival of their species, which is summarized in the following sentence. It sounds a little fancy but strong. The sentence isn't about a moment. It's just explaining the behavior. Choice D. It presents evidence that challenges the previous sentence characterization of wolf pack dynamics. What? There is no contradiction. The sentence is supporting the first one, not challenging it. So the final step is locking in the answer. So the final correct answer choice is choice A. That's it. That's how you dominate this type of SAT question. Now, if you're still hesitating, if you're still doubting yourself, ask yourself this. Are you actually applying these steps when you practice? Or are you just skimming the answer choices and hoping for the best? This is an SAT structure question, and you know what that means. They're not asking for what the passage says, they're asking how is this passage built. Think of it like architecture, like dissecting a blueprint. The first line, a question, and it pulls you in. It makes you wonder, why do sunflowers tilt but oaks don't? Then, the passage offers a theory, a possible answer. It introduces oxen, it explains the difference, it tells us why one plant moves and the other stays still. So what's the structure here? It's question, then answer. So that's it. Simple, direct, and clean. Now, let's destroy the wrong answer choices one by one. Choice A, the text compares the growth patterns of two plant species, then explains how those patterns are affected by environmental changes. No. The passage does compare two plants, sure, but where is the part about environmental changes? Nowhere, not a single mention. So choice A is wrong. Choice B, the text presents a theory about two species, then discusses facts that weaken the theory. Weaken the theory where the whole passage supports the theory. It's not questioning it, so we can eliminate choice B as well. Choice C, the text poses a question about two species, then presents a possible answer. Yes. That's exactly what happens. Keep this one. Now choice C. The text describes a behavior shared by two species, then discusses other behaviors shared by them. Shared behaviors? No, these two plants are so different. One moves, one doesn't. So this choice is completely wrong. The correct answer is choice C because it's simple. And that is how you analyze SAT structure questions. You break it down, you look at the blueprint, and you choose the answer that actually fits, not the one that just sounds smart. Now, go apply this method in every SAT structure question that you see, and watch how easy those questions are gonna become. So the first step is reading the question. Here is the question. Which choice best states the main purpose of the text? Pause right here. This is where most people mess up. Main purpose questions are not about random details, they are about one thing. Why did the author write this? Think of it like a text from a friend. What are they really trying to say? What is their main point? That's what we need to figure out. So the next step is reading the text. Popular systems are that solar panels and wind turbines dominate renewable energy discussions because they've changed global markets. Lesser known systems are the ones that says wave energy converters could also be crucial in fighting climate change. And the key point here is that unlike solar and wind, wave energy is still untapped, but it has huge potential for large-scale energy production. So the next step, step number 3, is predicting the answer choice. All right, so let's break this down. The first part, which is solar and wind energy. They're already famous. They are the celebrities of renewable energy. And the second part talks about wave energy, the underrated underdog. But scientists think it could be huge. The author isn't listing some problems. They're not saying wave energy is better than solar and wind. They're just shining a spotlight on wave energy's potential. So what is our prediction? Our prediction is that the passage is explaining why wave energy is an exciting and promising field in renewable energy research. So the next step, step number 4, is analyzing the answer choices. Now let's go full on these 4 answer choices. Choice A, to describe the technological challenges faced by wave energy systems during development. Nope, the passage never talks about problems or struggles. If this were a boxing match, this option wouldn't even be in the ring. So we can eliminate this choice. Choice B, to present reasons why renewable energy researchers consider wave energy systems to be promising. Yes, this is exactly what we predicted, and the passage hypes up waves energy's potential and says why scientists are excited about it. So let's keep this choice locked in. So choice C, to compare the efficiency of wave energy systems with that of solar and wind energy. Nah, there is no wave energy is 27% more powerful, like nonsense here. The passage isn't comparing efficiency, it's just explaining waves energy's potential. And we can eliminate this choice. Choice D, to argue that wave energy systems are more effective at reducing emissions than solar or wind energy. Absolutely not. The passage isn't making an argument. No one is saying wave energy is the champion of renewables. So we can eliminate this choice as well. So the next step, step number 5, is deciding on the final answers. So the best choice here is choice B, to present reasons why renewable energy researchers consider wave energy systems to be promising. Now, I want to give you some tips to approach these types of questions. So the first tip is think big picture. Don't get lost in these small details. Instead, zoom out. Ask, why did the author write this? Step number 1, reading the text carefully. The text is about a study where Dr. Marcus Reyes is looking at how exercise affects the release of endorphins, the feel-good chemicals in your brain. And here's the key part. Low-intensity cycling doesn't really do much for endorphins. High-intensive cycling, boom, endorphins spike. But here's the most important part. Heart rates didn't go past a certain level. So Dr. Reyes didn't think the increase in endorphins came from physical strain. Instead, she thinks it was the intensity of the exercise that caused the endorphins to release more. So the heart rate finding is important because it helps Dr. Rees figure out why the endorphins were increased. Without it, he might have thought that increased endorphins were just from physical strain. Now, the next step is predicting our answer choice. Alright, so let's predict. Here's what we need to know. The heart rate not going past a certain level is super important because it rules out that the endorphins were released just from physical effort. And this means the heart rate finding is crucial because it shows the increase in endorphins was due to intensity and not the physical effort, which, let's be honest, we all know is sometimes overrated, right? So based on this, I predict the answer is going to have something to do with ruling out an alternative explanation for the endorphin increase. So the next step, step number 3, is analyzing the answer choices. Now let's go through each answer choice really carefully. And we have to be like you're picking the best ice cream flavor from the freezer. You always choose the right one, right? Right. So choice A, it provided a preliminary evidence that endorphin levels increase during high-intensity cycling. Nope, the passage already told us the endorphins increase during high-intensity cycling. The heart rate finding isn't giving us that information. It's telling us why the increase happened. So we can literally eliminate this choice. Choice B, it suggested that changes in endorphin levels, endorphin release may occur during both high and low intensity exercise. Oh no. This isn't what the passage is saying. It doesn't suggest that low intensity exercise causes endorphin increases. It's focusing on high intensity exercise. So we can delete this one too. So choice C, it ruled out a potential alternative explanation for the increase in endorphin levels during high intensity cycling. Bingo, this is exactly what the passage is saying. The heart rate didn't go past a certain level, so the increase in endorphins couldn't be from physical strain, as Dr. Rees was able to rule that out, and this is the right answer. Choice D, it clarified that endorphin release during exercise depended on participants' individual fitness levels. Nope. We didn't talk about individual fitness levels in the passage. The study didn't focus on that at all. We can toss this one away. So the next step is deciding on the final answer. And the correct answer choice is choice C. It ruled out an alternative explanation for why the endorphins increase during high-intensity cycling. The heart rate finding also helped us explain that it was the intensity, not the strain, that caused that increase. Today, we're talking about improving your SAT score by at least 100 points. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through my 7 favorite SAT tips that will massively improve your SAT score. After watching this, you will think differently about the way you solve SAT questions. By the way, I'm Azamat and I've helped over 100 students to improve their SAT scores. Alright, let's dive in. Tip number 1 is what I call equal not superior technique. You're seconds away from picking your answer. You've narrowed it down into 2 choices. Your heart is racing. One answer seems to fit, but the other feels slightly better. And then, bam, time's up. You pick the wrong one. Why? Because the SAT just pulled its sneaky tricks on you. Here's what they do. They give you a passage that describes 2 behaviors, one about cleaning, the other about hunting. No judgment, no comparison. There are just facts. Then in the answer choices, they throw in a trap, one that suggests one behavior is more important than the other, and your brain, craving simplicity, falls for it. Maybe you think, well, they did spend a bit more time talking about cleaning, so it must be the focus, right? Well, That's actually wrong. And that's exactly what they want you to think. And here's the secret. Look for equal weight, not implied priority. If a passage presents two things neutrally without comparing them, the correct answer will not suggest one is better or worse. If an answer choice says contrast, preference, cross it out immediately. The right answer, it will match the neutral tone of the passage, just stating facts, no preference and no bias. And that's why C is correct. So next time, here's what you need to do. If a passage describes multiple things without comparing them, then immediately eliminate any answer that says contrast, preference, or better than. I'll look for an answer that keeps a neutral descriptive tone. That's how you beat the SAT on its own game. But there is still one more trick they use that almost nobody talks about. And if you don't catch it, you'll fall for it every single time. Tip number 2 is what I call the forbidden value trick. You're flying through your SAT math section, question after question. You feel unstoppable, and then you see it. A simple looking equation. X multiplied by r minus 5 plus 4 equals 13x plus 30. It kind of sounds easy, but there is a trap. And if you don't catch it, you're walking straight into a score-crushing mistake. The question asks, what cannot be the value of r? Most students start solving for x, moving terms around and trying to get an answer. And that's exactly what the SAT wants you to do. Waste your valuable time. But what if I told you there is a shortcut, a way to solve this instantly without doing all the algebra? You keep working through the equation, you're convinced that you're getting closer. You simplify, you isolate x, and then something weird happens. You end up with an equation that suddenly doesn't work. The numbers don't add up, your calculator gives an error. Your confidence is shattered. But here's the trick. Instead of solving for x, look at when the equation breaks. In SAT math, an equation has exactly one solution as long as the coefficient of x is not 0. And if the coefficient of x disappears, the equation collapses, making it impossible to solve. So let's break it down. Firstly, rearrange the equation x multiplied by r minus 5 minus 13x equals 26. Factor out x. So we get x multiplied by r minus 5 minus 13 equals 26, and that will equal to this. For there to be exactly one solution, r minus 18 doesn't equal to 0, which means r cannot be 18. So that's our answer. Choice C, 18. Now that you know the trick, here's how to use it in other SAT questions. Always check when the coefficient of x becomes 0. This is the SAT's hidden breaking point. If an equation has no solution, that means the forbidden value is the answer. Instead of solving the whole equation, eliminate the impossible value instantly. By the way, if you're serious about boosting your SAT score, make sure to click the join button below. You're in the middle of the SAT, dialed in, locked, cooking, and then boom, a word that you've never seen before. Incontrovertible. Clock is ticking, heart is racing. Does it mean controversial? The opposite? What do? You're gonna panic, guess, or maybe move on. And just like that, one question could cost you tens of points. But here's the crazy part. You already know the answer. And it's not just to this word, to dozens of other words as well. The SAT is a trap. They try to slow you down and they want you to burn time. And most students, they fall for it. They think the only way out is to memorize hundreds of words, which is like trying to drink the entire ocean. But here's the cheat code. Instead of memorizing words, you decode them. You may be thinking, how? A prefix is like a secret key. It tells you exactly what a word means before you even finish reading it. And check this out. In means not. Contra means against. Verts means turn. So if you put it together, we get not able to turn against, aka undeniable. So boom, Word correct, no memorization, no stress. But what if the SAT throws something worse at you? Like misapprehend. Are you gonna guess, skip, or are you gonna pray? No, you break it down. Miss means wrong. Apprehend means to understand. So misapprehend means to understand something incorrectly. You didn't memorize it, you kind of unlocked it. And here's where it gets wild. There are only 32 prefixes that make up most of the hard words on the SAT. Pre means before, precede, which means to come before. Sub means under, submarine means underwater. Re means again, rebuild means to build again. And I put all 32 of them into a free worksheet that you can find in the description below. You're reading an SAT science passage. The words, pure nonsense. Mitochondrial transcription factors regulate gene expression in response to oxidative stress. What does that even mean? You read it and still nothing. Clock is ticking, stress is rising, and your score is dropping. But here's the fix. A simple trick that makes science passages 10x easier to understand. And here's the truth. Most of the science terms don't matter. The SAT doesn't really care if you know what oxidate phosphorylation is, so don't waste your time decoding those complex terms. Instead, focus on what actually makes sense. The passage says transcription factors influence cellular response. Ignore transcription factors. Just focus on influence response. So make sure that you skip the jargon and read the meaning instead. When you stop getting stuck on jargon, everything changes. You read faster, you understand better and more, you answer questions with confidence. 30 days, that's all I had. 1 month to turn a failing score into something that could change my future. Everyone told me it wasn't possible, that you can't fix years of mistakes in just a few weeks. But deep down, I knew that this was my last chance. So I made a promise to myself. For the next 30 days, I will live, breathe, and dream the SAT. Day 1 felt like a fresh start. I had the perfect plan. Wake up early, study 8 hours a day, master every section. But plans are easy when you're motivated. The real test starts when that motivation disappears. So I woke up at 6 a.m. and I sat there staring at my desk for a full 5 minutes before writing day 1 on a piece of paper. It sounds small, but that moment, that's where everything started for me. By day 3, I already felt it. The burnouts, the distractions, and everything. But every time I wanted to quit, I remembered why I started. So I broke the 30 days into missions. Week 1 was all about building the base. After 1 week, something changed though. I wasn't chasing motivation anymore. I was chasing momentum. But day 7 hit really hard. I remember looking at myself in the mirror thinking, is this really going to work? And I couldn't answer that. And that was the scariest part of all, not knowing. But that's what made it actually real. And by day 8, I wasn't feeling like the motivated students from that day 1. And it's funny, the more I studied, the dumper I felt. And I knew that I actually needed a break. Not because I was sort of lazy, but because I was a human. No one tells you this part. The burnout hits really hard. And it hits way harder than the actual test. And I was failing every mock test. And I thought I was improving, but my score said otherwise. And that's when the doubt kicked in. Maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe I was just wasting time. And I started questioning everything, my methods, my plan, my strategies, and even myself. But when I thought about quitting, I remembered something. Results don't come when it's easy. They come when you push through the pain. So I made a decision to stop trying to study more and start studying way smarter than that. And this was the shift that changed everything for me. Day 16, the restart. I realized I didn't need to study everything. I just needed to master what mattered most on the SAT. So I made a list of all my weak points from that mock exam and I studied them really hard. And instead of solving 100 questions in a day, I solved 30, but most importantly, perfectly. And I checked every mistake I've done, I wrote down why I made it, and I actually fixed that mistake. And for the first time in 2 weeks, I saw progress. My score jumped by 60 points. And that small win reignited everything. And I started treating it like a sport. Training my focus for the SAT, my discipline, my patience. And if you're watching this, stop cramming. Make sure to start analyzing because the SAT does not reward your effort, it rewards your strategy. And when I hit day 20, I hit a wall again. My scores flatlined. That's when I learned the hardest truth. Sometimes you're doing everything right and you still feel stuck. But that doesn't mean you're failing. It just means that you're about to level up really soon. 25 days in, my habits were locked in, my brain felt really sharp, and I knew I wasn't the same person who started this journey. But the real test wasn't the SAT. It was me versus me. Day 26, I failed again. 690. It hurt so much, but it didn't destroy me. And that's when I realized failure only hurts when you're still learning how to lose. 4 days left. Everything I've done was leading to this. Every mistake, every late night, every page of notes, and it all mattered now. I decided to simulate the real thing. Full test on Blue Book, no excuses. And unfortunately, that test broke me. But it also built me. The night before the SAT, I didn't study, I just sat there thinking about everything, the mistakes, the self-doubt, all the midnight panic, and I told myself, you're ready. You've done enough studying for the SAT. Day 30, test day. When I started the test on Blue Book, everything slowed down. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of the SAT. I didn't even want to open it. My hands were shaking. 780 math. I actually did it. And if you're watching this and you're feeling stuck, don't wait for the perfect time. There is literally no perfect time. I genuinely need to show you something that could completely change your SAT score. And if you skip this, you're making a huge mistake. And I will show you 4 powerful strategies to ace them. So let's get into it. So as you can see on the screen, there are 4 strategies you need to master in order to get your desired score. And there are also SAT questions that I've created so that you can understand how to apply it in a lot of the SAT questions. So here's the strategy number 1, which is understanding the skeptic's viewpoint. And here we've got a question. You can pause this video now and solve it on your own first. So without further ado, let's begin. Based on the text, the author of text 2 would most likely want to know if Whitman took steps to preclude which potential objection to the finding described in text 1. So firstly, let's read text number 1. So here you have one nation, and it's an indigenous group. It has used storytelling for 2 things, cultural preservation and education. They also launched a program. Then there's a study by some researcher. And they're telling that storytelling was better on comprehension assessment than a standard curriculum. So in short, text 1 claims that storytelling in education leads to better comprehension scores. Like Storytelling equals better comprehension, and that's it. No more confusion. Now let's move on to text number 2. While studies on storytelling while they're really good, there's actually a negative thing, which is this: there are flaws in research design. And many of these studies lack diverse samples, so that's another disadvantage. And they also fail to account for pre-existing differences in students' ability, and they do not include proper control groups. And this is the third disadvantage, which is not proper group control groups. And that's why it's difficult to determine whether storytelling itself is responsible for improved comprehension scores. So in short, text 2 says, yes, storytelling is good, but there are research flaws. Like it says there are lack of samples, no control groups, and failure to account for pre-existing differences. We can infer that we can say that text 2 is skeptical about whether storytelling is actually the cause of improved comprehension scores, or maybe some other factors might explain that difference. So now we know it. Let's move on to answer choices. Choice A: the students would have demonstrated even greater improvement if storytelling techniques had been used for a longer period. I mean, this is irrelevant because we don't care about time, whether it's short or long. We don't care about that, so that's why A is wrong. Choice B: the students would have performed worse on comprehension assessments if the study sample size had been smaller. Well, yeah, sample size matters, but the primary concern is not a sample size. It's more of a causation. That's why it's not a main concern for us. So that's why B is also wrong. Choice C: the students would have shown improved comprehension scores regardless of whether storytelling was used. Well, this is exactly what we thought, because there are no control groups and they don't know whether they have knowledge or not. They didn't assess the students' ability initially. That's why this choice is correct. Now let's move on to choice D. The students would have responded to storytelling differently if they had not known they were part of the study. I guess it might be true according to my brain, but in the text, there's nothing about it. That's why choice D is wrong. So that's why the final answer is choice C. And the strategy was understanding the skeptic's viewpoint, and you might not have understand it like clearly. And I will try my best to understand it. I will try my best to explain it to you. So the second passage here is almost challenging or criticizing the first passage. And your job is to identify the main concern being raised because text 2 is criticizing it. That's what the viewpoint of a skeptic is. Here, skeptic is text number 2. Another thing that a lot of students miss is that they don't really look for causal relationships. For example, X will cause Y. And this is something that can explain the results of a study or something else. I mean, which is also something that you need to understand. Now let's move on to strategy number 2, which is paying attention to shifts in the passages. And I've seen this a ton of time being used on SAT questions. And here's the SAT question. You can pause the video now and you can solve it on your own first. So based on the text, the author would most likely agree with which statement about student engagement. So now let's read the text. In the past decade, online education platforms have expanded rapidly, with many institutions offering video-based courses. A widely accepted model in educational research suggests that student engagement is primarily determined by course format. Interactive courses, discussion-based or problem-solving activities lead to higher engagements than passive lecture-based courses. So they were telling you that interactive courses will lead to higher engagement than like passive lecture-based courses. However, here we have a shift in our passage. So that's the thing that I wanted to talk about. However, nevertheless, and sometimes you also have to look for some linking words like therefore as a result, because they also say something important. A study conducted by researchers at Global Ed found that while interactivity played a role, other factors such as the quality of course materials and students' personal motivation also significantly influence engagement level. So it's saying that it was not just because it was an interactive course, it was not just because of those discussion-based and problem-solving activities, but it was because of the quality of course materials like those worksheets and PDFs, and the students' personal motivation also played a crucial role in the engagement level. So now let's look at choices. It can explain some, but not all the differences in engagement levels across students. Well, yes, that's true because course format plays a role. That is true, but there are also some factors that matter, and it's saying the exact same thing. Well, the passage never said course format is irrelevant. It just says it's one of several factors. And this choice is too extreme. That's why we can eliminate choice B. Now let's move on to choice C. It's often affected by course format, but not for the reasons assumed by the widely accepted model. Well, this is tricky because the passage does challenge for the model, but it doesn't say the reasons for engagements are completely different. It just adds more factors, and this is especially right, but it's kind of the best because, as I said, it doesn't say the reasons are completely different, but it says there are more factors. That's why C is wrong. Choice D, it constrains how much time students spend on coursework, but not how engaged they are. Well, the passage is about engagement. It's not about time spent. That's why we can eliminate choice D results. So the final answer is choice A. And as I said, the strategy, the tip is paying attention to shift in the passage. For example, when it challenges, like usually in the passage, there will be the last sentences that will challenge a widely accepted idea that was discussed in the first sentence. And you should definitely look at these words like however, but, nevertheless, and etc. Now let's move on to strategy number 3, which is always breaking the passage into different parts. And this is so crucial. And if you do this right, you can ace your exam. So here we have a transition question that I've created. So you can pause the video right now and you can solve it on your own first, and you can play the video and watch my explanation. So this is a transition question, and you need to understand that our job here is to understand the logical flow of the passage here. And we should also identify the relationship between the ideas in this passage. So let's read it. In 1961, NASA launched its first program. As part of the program, the spacecraft was first positioned onto a launch pad. The engines were ignited, generating massive thrust. Finally, the rocket ascended into the sky, leaving Earth's atmosphere. So, firstly, it was positioned on the launch pad. Then, engines were ignited, and then the rocket launched into the sky. So, in this case, there is a sequence of events. First this, then this, and finally, that's something else happened. So that means you're looking for a transition word that shows a step-by-step progression. So I believe that we need a phrase that should show the next step in a sequence. Now let's move on to answer choices. A, for example, it's used to introduce an example, but we're not giving an example here. You are describing steps in a sequence. That's why choice A is wrong. Choice B, next. Well, yeah, this fits perfectly. because we are describing events in a sequenced order. And the spacecraft was positioned, then the engines were ignited. So it makes sense, right? That's why choice B is the correct answer choice. But still, let's move on to other choices. Similarly is used to compare two things in a positive way. And here, if you're not making a comparison here, you're just showing progression. That's why choice C is also wrong. In contrast, it uses to show a difference or opposition, and it's not something that we want here, so that's why D is also wrong. The main thing, and this is a kind of an easy example of transition question, but if you're gonna solve hard transition questions, then you need to recognize three types of transitions. So the first category is addition, which includes moreover, additionally, and etc. And they are used to add a new idea. And then the next type, the second type of transition type is sequence, which is next, then, firstly, lastly, finally. And they show order in a process or a sequence. And next up, you have contrast. However, on the other hand, like so many of them, and shows difference. Now let's move on to the next strategy, which is checking for direct evidence. And you will understand how to apply it in a lot of SAT questions when we kind of move on to this SAT question. You can pause the video right now. You can solve it on your own, especially if you're taking the exam. These questions are going to be so useful. Yep. So it asks for information detect that supports which statement about historical climate data. So let's read the passage first. So they analyze historical climate data. So they started talking about it. Information gathered from ice cores, tree rings, and etc. to explore long-term patterns of temperature change. That's also something that is important. Although this method provides valuable insights such as revealing past periods of extreme warming. So this method is good. Well, it shows past periods of extreme warming, but it's not widely adopted. Like a lot of people don't use it, right? Because the data is often incomplete, and now they're telling a reason why a lot of people don't use that historical climate data. A challenge that current climate modeling techniques struggle to overcome. Okay, so I guess my prediction here is that the passage tells that this data, historical climate data, can provide unique insights, but many people don't use it, right? Because of incompleteness. Now let's go to answer choices. Choice A, it may provide insight that other types of climate data cannot. We know that it can reveal past warming trends, meaning it provides unique insights. So let's keep choice A. Choice B, it has thus far proved valuable mainly to researchers studying glacial movements. Well, there is nothing about glacial movements, so we can literally eliminate choice B easily. Next up, we have choice C. It may be underused because of its controversial status among scientists. This is a little bit of a tricky answer choice, and that's a trap answer choice. Why? Because the passage says they are underused. Not a lot of people use it because of incompleteness. It's not because of controversy, and we don't know whether whether there is controversy or not. That's why you can eliminate choice C as well. Now let's move on to choice D. It tends to be much more fragmented than other types of climate data of comparable age. We know that there is incompleteness in that data type, but the passage doesn't compare it to other climate data explicitly. That's why you can eliminate D as well. So the best choice here is choice A. It may provide insight that other types of climate data cannot. So my best tip is be cautious of extreme or specific answer choices. For example, If an answer choice adds an extra detail that is not in the passage, well, you can understand that it's probably wrong.
So now you know all the SAT strategies you need to pass your SAT exam, but if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again, you might still fail the SAT. So make sure to watch this video where I show you 12 mistakes that you really need to avoid before your exam. So make sure to watch it.